So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Thanks so much for coming and taking a little bit of time in the afternoon to share with John and I. It's an understatement for me to say how excited I am to be working with John and just the things that we are planning for the future. I know that everyone that's on this call knows full well how challenging it is with founders when they're on their own, and I count myself in that bucket. And so throughout the last 15 years, as many of you will know that have been with WKI for a while, I've had some great talent that have joined me in my adventure. But I have to say that I was super excited when John and I started talking about 10 months ago. Can you believe that, John? It's been 10 months.
It's been, yeah.
So 10 months ago, we started to have just, fun conversations about, WKI and its future and, where would I like it to go? And, just, if I had breathing room, what would I see in the next, horizon of 3 to 5 years? Which was really invigorating for me. And especially because, as I say, as a sole founder, it was nice to be able to think if I had some horsepower and somebody that, would put up with me, what would I do and what could we do together? And so here we are. Many of you will know that I hold Purdue, and I think we all do, but I especially hold Purdue in high regard. It was Purdue that really, over 10 years ago, really championed the So What Who Cares Why You methodology, really championed helping me to build visibility for it in the university market, specifically in the incubation market, and helped me to kind of get a little bit of a platform for it to be able to reach into the market. So I am eternally grateful for that. And just the opportunity to work with really great people at Purdue was fantastic. So for all those reasons and more, the least of which is I just like John, as many of you do, and he's great fun, but also incredible and vast amount of experience that really helps us, I think, for the future to build a very rich methodology, very rich set of tools in the So What Who Cares Why You method. So I'm super excited about that. I want to really open up our conversation today to just give you a glimpse into a little bit of what we're thinking. And as you'll see, to really invite you and I hope sincerely to engage you in this process so that we get it right in terms of the impact that we want to make in the market. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to John.
Thanks, Wendy. Hello, everybody. Many of you I know. There's a good number of you that I don't know, and part of what we want to do here is just give you a little sense of who I am. But really, the way I'd like to start it is, how it's almost a question. How often in your life or in your career do you really get to start from the what if point? And really start to see things quickly come to fruition. So even though Wendy and I have spent a lot of time in the last 10 months talking about where we could go, it really goes back to us just simply asking the what if question. And hopefully today will give you some flavor of what the what if is actually leading us towards. So I share Wendy's excitement. This is just absolutely a fabulous opportunity that actually has come about because I've elected to take it's actually called a voluntary early partial retirement from Purdue. So I'm still dedicating 3 days of my week to the endeavors that we have going on at the Purdue Foundry and Purdue Ventures, but it frees me up 2 days a week to do this kind of work and try to bring the benefits of what we've learned over the years to folks like yourselves. Okay, now let's see if I can. Oh, here we go. So, who am I? Well, I'm just somebody who's really been grateful to have a fabulous career, a fabulous family, fabulous friends. I've had the opportunity to do a lot of things. You know, my education up there. I was a practicing attorney for a good number of years, vice president and general counsel at what is now ArcelorMittal, the largest steel company in the world. A great run with a couple of startups. As I've done more of this work in the startup space, I've really found myself drawing back even further in my career. I think the year I spent as a teacher and a coach, or years as a coach, is something that you really kind of draw on. Some of the tech commercialization work that I've had the good fortune to do over the years, as well as things I've done on the investing side, on the startup formation side, and then doing things on a little bit of a larger stage with the National Business Incubation Association, which is now the International Business Innovation Association, as well as the years I was on the board of the Venture Club of Indiana. I continue to do board work. I continue to do some consulting work, but the real focus and what I think I'm most proud of over the years of what I've been able to get involved with and participate in have been the Purdue years. I first came to Purdue in 2005 and assisted in their opening of their first satellite research park up in the Chicago area. And that's when I really started, I think, understanding their practice of incubation. We installed a great number of program elements based on some of the consulting I had done in the past. We had a great staff as we expanded those research parks and incubators across the state of Indiana. Today, and I've not been that close to it the last few years, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But today there's 5 research parks. There's over 300,000 square feet of incubation space. But the real heart, I think, of what we're doing on the entrepreneurship and innovation side, we're doing on campus at the Purdue Foundry, which is basically the startup hub of the university, helping people turn their ideas into market-based opportunities. And we do that with everybody that comes to us, whether it's faculty, staff, students, but maybe more importantly and more pertinent, people from around the state and around the various communities, as we help them move ideas, as I've taken to saying more recently, help them move their ideas from their brains into actual market reality. Most recently, and for the past about 4 years, I've been running as managing director of Purdue Ventures, where we run our seed funds, as well as provide access to capital and talent for the startups that we work with. So what I want to get into the numbers here shortly. This slide, I just simply try to kind of extrapolate from what we've done and say, you know, what is it that's gone on at Purdue, to which we owe so much credit to the so what, who cares, why you methodology of Wendy Kennedy. And that's because that's the foundation upon which everything we've done has been built. So it's all about leveraging the power of ideation, understanding the business value. We've created record-breaking startup numbers, both in terms, and I'll show you the numbers here in a second, everything from disclosure at the university level to actual numbers of startups. And we're learning ever more about on the access to capital side, which is kind of pertinent to what one of the initiatives that Wendy and I have of kind of taking that foundational piece and moving into actual growth opportunity. So the foundation remains the same, and I think we've proven the impact of the process and want to continue to make those numbers grow. So move these. We've done the metrics. We've run hundreds of companies and founders through So What, Who Cares, Why You. We're averaging over 300 closures per year. Now, I certainly don't get any credit for that. That's just a testament to the size of the research institution but it gives you some sense of the kind of ratios in terms of startup numbers or ideation numbers that we can generate off of those numbers of disclosures, which don't necessarily turn into to patents. Currently, those 300 plus disclosures are resulting in about 125 patents a year. And we've been averaging over the last 7 years since we founded the Foundry, 25 IP-based startups per year. But we also are working with a like number of other startups that are commercializing ideas other than university intellectual property. So we have a vast amount of experience in running people through the ideation process. We have 4 seed funds. Purdue Ventures has about $40 million of assets under management, so that includes the seed funds, plus the existing portfolio of investments that we manage, which cut across about 85 different companies. Those companies have raised close to $400 million over the same time period. And in an area that Wendy and I are spending more and more time discussing and learning about and looking for ways to leverage, they've leveraged up about $12 million in SBIR and STTR dollars. So what's that mean? And Wendy, I'm going to pause there for a second in case you wanted to add anything. That kind of brings to conclusion my past. Now I want to talk about my future, which is far more exciting.
I don't know. I like those numbers. No, I don't. I think that just the only thing that I might add there is that the added dimension that you bring to WKI in terms of that roster of expertise, that roster in the investment world and the venture programs and the setting up a structure for organizations for the funding of startups was an important value add for me in WKI. And John alluded to it, but I think that there's a real step up, I think, in the richness of the methodology, given that expertise.
Well, I think that's a great way to introduce the excitement I feel about this slide. I think many of you that are on the call will recognize this slide from Wendy's materials, but you'll also note that we've added some things. So basically, I love to view this slide as the colored balls representing ideas, and they're ideas in all various states of development. Some are very nascent, maybe not fully formed, but others, as they go down through the funnel, become more firmly formed. And you'll notice that the actual volume decreases. Every one of you on this call has been through that on that journey, knowing that this oftentimes is a matter of taking some of the greatest ideas in the world and rendering them down into the few that the market's actually responding to. So the way we view this is this source of idea generation from engineers, scientists, researchers. Honestly, this is going to expand as we look at markets that involve investors, corporate ideas, corporate employees. But from this whole wellspring of ideas, you're familiar with the process in terms of going through ideation, business modeling, financial planning. And now you see what we've added is an additional triangle towards the narrow end of the funnel called capital strategy, and recognizing that it's at the early stage where ideation, formulation, and articulating the value of the business proposition are so critical. But at the later stages, we're actually talking about the creation of value. And whether that's measured in terms of an exit of a company or revenue generated in the marketplace, there are steps that we see that can enhance the foundational pieces that already exist that create a clearer path towards getting to commercial reality. I've had the good fortune of kind of living in a test tube with a lot of this, and I think we have a lot of data, ranging everywhere from what works in an ecosystem to What are the profiles of the companies that have been successful in raising capital? And in some cases, maybe they're it's possible for them to bootstrap, and we're not at all saying that isn't an avenue to pursue, but we are saying that as a general construct, there's this sequence from ideation through the capital raise on the way to actual commercial reality. So, what's that mean in terms of what we want to do going forward? Really, three kind of broad initiatives: market development, and that's as it relates specifically to WKI and to So What, Who Cares, Why You. You're going to see our moniker here shortly that we're going to be working that under, but we want to make sure that all the people that can benefit from this methodology are in fact seeing that it's available to them. So market development is key. Content development is kind of really what I think was the genesis of the discussions that Wendy and I have had and continue to have, in terms of saying, okay, we see the foundation here. We understand the pieces that are so critical to be able to get to that point of articulating the value of the business proposition, which, by the way, you're going to hear me say that 100 times. I met Wendy back in 2007, and saying that phrase, articulating the value of the business proposition, has been locked in my mind ever since. And we want to say, okay, that we have the foundational piece there. What can we add to it to make the likelihood of turning this into commercial reality all the more, all the stronger? And that leads to this third category of what we're going to do going forward, and that is it is growth. And the funny thing about this slide is that we had called it a number of things. We had called it growth, startup growth. We had called it growth of growth of breadth of where the So What, Who Cares, Why You methodology would best fit. And we decided just to leave simply call it growth. And we really do mean growth in multiple areas. Obviously, market development is growth. That's what the seedlings represent. Content, creating the music of that is an element of growth. But there's so many other categories of growth that I think we're going to be uncovering and actually taking ourselves through exactly the same methodology. One example of that, I believe, is in segment analysis, and it really, as we think about the value that So Who Cares, Why You provides, who's to say? I mean, it's the whole purpose from the get-go has been to help entrepreneurs and to help innovators move their ideas forward. But what if, and this gets into the what ifs again, what if we decided that angel investment groups could benefit from the same methodology by helping their companies go through that so that they're making wiser, stronger, and deeper investment decisions? The same with venture firms and venture funds. What about healthcare systems? We know where we exist in the university world. We know where we exist with entrepreneurial support organizations, but there's others, including the venture funds. And I think the corporates are another really fertile area that we see the potential for growth, and not just growth in terms of the use of the tools and the modules and the methodology, but growth of the methodology itself. As we learn from a broader and broader variety of users of the methodology, because this is ultimately an exercise in continuous improvement. It's total quality at work. So that was another discussion I just had yesterday on the phone with somebody who operates in the same space, who actually did some similar work for a large corporation, and they did it under the umbrella of their total quality management system. So we just see all these growth opportunities in front of us, and we want to make sure that we are taking the time and the thought and making the connections to actually do that in a way that benefits those that utilize the methodology. And with that, Wendy, I'm going to kick it back to you, at least for a moment. And
Come on, how about you do my
off of
intro? You're on a roll. Why don't you do it? I'm never good to talk about myself. Okay, well, maybe I'll just say this, because there are people on the call this afternoon that I have not met from John's camp. So maybe just, I'll bore the rest of you who know me, but so I'm a startup girl. I've always been with founders who are on the napkin. I think one of the things that John has already proven his worth on is bringing structure and discipline to the way I operate. so that's a good thing. Being in startups, as you know, with your own founders, those of you who work with founders, we're a little bit entrepreneurial, which is another way to say we kind of are all over the place and, having a good time. So, yes, in all seriousness, I've always been with engineers and scientists, always in tech startups, always with high growth, disruptive ideas. So that was the lens I looked through when I started WKI 15 years ago, if you can believe it. So 15 years ago, I decided that if I ever had it in me to write a book, I would write a book to help all those engineers and scientists that I'd been working with in these founder-driven companies understand the business side of the conversation, and not to turn them into business people, but to give them a set of tools and structured process that they could actually think through the business side of the equation, so that they could be in meetings and participate in those conversations at a meeting, that they could pitch to investors and speak the same language and not get the polite nod, as I always used to call it. And so, I love that. I love that space. I love the startup world. That's always my heartland, my homeland. I get excited by new and novel and game-changing ideas. And so, that was really has been the fuel, if you will, of So What, Who Cares, Why You, from the very early days when I started. Next slide, John. And so if we fast forward some 15 years, it's always fun, to kind of look at all the different organizations we've worked with. And I think this is what John was mentioning in many respects, which is, as I started to talk with John about, so where is So What, Who Cares, Why You at play? And I think it's useful even for the customers who are on the call this afternoon. Usually when I'm talking one-on-one with customers, I'm very focused on their needs, but it's interesting to take a look at the touch points of So What, Who Cares, Why You across the innovation spectrum. Everything from the European Space Agency to an energy accelerator in San Antonio, Texas called Epicenter, to the government SBIR program at the Air Force Research Labs, to Community Health Network. I mean, we cut across the spectrum. If I was to do my own market fishbone, right, you start to see quite a diverse array of organizations that have been, and continue to solve problems using So What, Who Cares, Why You, which is very, it's very gratifying for me and I'll just, always say, as the founder. It's even more exciting when I start to take off my founder hat and say, if we were to really get our heads down and accelerate into some of these segments, what might we produce? What might we see? So that's, the conversations and the nature of the deep dive that John and I have been doing together, and in pushing me to think about together how rich are these segments and what kinds of problems can we solve in the markets that we're in today, because I don't want anyone to think that those aren't great markets. They are, but there's many markets where we can actually develop value and deliver value, I think, even more so. Next slide. So I think one of the things that I have learned, and again, it's from all of you, I'll just tell you a quick story. I think that the reason that WKI has the Ideation program that it has, to be very honest, is not because of anything that I did back in the early days. It's because there were customers like Darlene Boudreau from Tech Fort Worth who came to me and said, do you think you could put those tools on big white dry erase posters? And that began the whole, growth of that side of our business, to really look at that the tools are just visual tools, they're mental models. And the more that we could get inventors to stand up at the walls and start to talk through their ideas with other founders, that, something magic happened. It was just uncanny that the more you gave them a structure with a visual tool and had them, we use the word ideate, but for scientists and engineers, it was just put a bunch of them in a room together and give them the structure of a tool and let them discover things about their idea from a business point of view. And guess what? In the process, they learn to articulate their ideas more in terms of their business value. So I think that that's really been the spark. Many of you, the European Space Agency has been a fabulous customer for us in teaching us how to scale the methodology across multiple countries through hosted services. And delivering it more in a mobile hosted environment without having to touch each inventor individually, but coaching them afterwards and listening to them pitch their ideas after they've kind of worked through online hosted services, worked through the visual tools. So different approaches for different markets. And I think that that's been a real it's an area, I would say, for me, as we look and we look at the vision for WKI and we look at rolling out tools and visual models and cutting across a broader spectrum of customers, that we start to see that what if we were able to offer So What Who Cares YU in a much more flexible modular approach. And John, I'll just ask you to flip to the next slide. What if we were able to actually take So What Who Cares YU and not have it be so rigid? And by rigid, I mean, yes, it's a methodology. Yes, it's a triple. There are 9 questions in the methodology, and many of our customers are very, very committed to staying true to that, which I love. But what if we were to take off the blinders and say, could we actually allow customers and allow people to use So What Who Cares YU in a way that works for them and integrate modules? And when I say modules, I simply mean different, say questions into their world. So maybe it's 5 questions, maybe it's 4 questions, depending on the nature of the customer and the problem they're trying to solve. And also maybe it's a whole different kind of idea. Maybe it's more consumer-based products. I mean, I know today, and I think many of our customers on the call today would also agree, that many of you use So What Who Cares YU for non-technology ideas. And while that will always continue to be a heartland space for us, we know the power of the tools for a wide range of ideas. So I think, John and I are whiteboarding and visioning and talking about all these kinds of things to allow So What Who Cares YU to be much more integrative and flexible and modular. Next slide, please, John.
So I just heard the words "what if" at least a dozen times, which is
why not?
The what if is so powerful. And I will also say, in terms of us whiteboarding, to answer the question so many of you have on your mind. Yes, it's very cold when you go up to Ottawa this time of year.
Well, but that keeps us healthy. But I think what's true is that, and what you're seeing on the screen here is really the hosted online solution that we currently have today. But as I shared with John, what if we were able to offer dynamic modules that actually organize based upon user? And to be honest, we're not that far away from that kind of an offering. But as you all know, it's easy to architect it once you have content. I think it's, and and I've been told, and I'm guilty of this, I have a lot of content. But I think what's important is having the right amount of content for inventors and entrepreneurs and innovators in the right types of modules that engage them. And I think that for us, coming back to John's point about content development, that's kind of where I think we are today is, yes, we have products to sell today, as you all know. Yes, I again say, yes, we know that the methodology works the way it is, but we want it to be bigger, better, and richer. And we want it to meet your needs as well. And you're all out in the market every day. We get to talk to you periodically. And so, next slide, John. I think that this is where it brings us is, we really want to engage very directly with people like yourselves. There's quite a cross section of people on the call today, some who've been with us for over a decade. Others who I know I personally do not know, but have depth of experience in the innovation arena. And I think that one of the things that we're really looking to do here is get it right with the right kinds of input, and to take feedback and have people give us their honest, candid input as to what can be a real problem solver for you. What would you, in an ideal setting, like to see something like this in the ideation arena at the front end of your funnels? What kinds of things would you want to have? What would you like So What Who Cares Why You to stop doing? What would you like it to start doing?
Wendy, I would add that what we're looking for, and we're going to do it formally later, but informally now, we're looking for your thoughts and ideas on the actual content itself, on delivery mechanisms, anything associated with everything that So What Who Cares Why You represents, and anything associated with the movement of innovation into the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way to say it. And I think that there's people on the call as well that maybe have not had exposure to So What Who Cares By You, but as I say, their depth of expertise in their fields. We're interested in that as well, aren't we? Like, we really like people to kind of share, what kind of value add can we bring at that front end of the funnel that they aren't seeing today. So as you see, we're looking at a customer advisory board. We've been kind of whiteboarding what that would look like and the kinds of things we'd like to do with that to make it have some real richness and teeth. But right now too, I think we're all ears. We're ears wide open in terms of your observations, your wish lists, your do's and don'ts, everything in between. I think, we have ideas. And when I first started, it was a different kettle of fish because I just hunkered away for 18 months and wrote a book. Now we have all this great exposure to people like you, and we want to try to harness it as much as we can. So I think there's only one slide, right, John? Yeah. So here we are. This is where we is. And we also will probably reach out to some of you. So please take our call and see if we can get you engaged in some conversations. We're going to be at NBIA. We're going to be at a bunch of places. But I think that we would really like to connect with you and, have a good roundtable discussion if you're up for that. And those of you on the call that are certified coaches with WKI, I'm going to come after you and get you and rope you in. So that's it for the formal part. I'm going to just pull up, John, if you want to kind of take back, I'm going to just pull up in case anybody has comments or questions.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have any questions that you want to write in, that'd be fine. One word on the contact information. I'm having a little technical difficulty getting my Wendy Kennedy email address up and running. So
okay.
Any immediate feedback, don't hesitate to reach out to me via LinkedIn.
Okay.